welcome back to PostScript. It's nice to have you return with us for our interview with Robert David Steele. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and Robert's here for our Transition Talks, which is our monthly series of speakers that talk to the Lord to where the world is going in this transition into a whole new space. And so, Robert, welcome back. Nice to always, of course, to have you here and to be a part of all of this. We were talking about some of the aspects of all the big change that's coming downstream, and I'm interested. Let me just chain into the end of the idea that we were talking about before. I'm convinced that there is such kind of focused kind of orchestration of what's going on this planet right now that there has to be some centralized kind of planning and function, and that whether it is using game theory and systems analysis and supercomputers, as you've suggested, or otherwise. In my mind, there's a war room with a bunch of big screens up there, and people are looking at the world and they're saying, we need a little more fear in here, and we got to do. I mean, one of the examples, for instance, is nobody was shooting anybody for a year and a half while the COVID thing was going on last year. And then all of a sudden it turns on again, and you say, where in the frickin' world did that come from? And then they run a bunch of them, run right after another, and it's almost like they say, and now time to do this and this and this, and it's like, directing a TV show or some other kind of thing. You ever heard anything or thought about that?
Well, you can think about it at multiple levels. I mean, John Rappaport is one of the people I follow, and he's famous for talking about all of us as a software program. Mm-hmm. And the movie The Matrix, it's almost a Luciferian thing where they use Hollywood to laugh at us. Yeah. And they use Hollywood to say, this is what we're doing. And in theory, they're supposed to tell us,
yes,
and then
exactly.
That becomes our willing consent. You also have the whole issue of post-World War II evil that actually evil goes back further. Lionel Tiger wrote a great book called The Manufacture of Evil, which goes back to the feudal period, the factory periods, when we transitioned from villages that were self-sustaining into removing people into factories. And today, of course, we have cubicle rats, which is a form of soft prison, just like schools are soft prisons. And what I have seen is, I think at the very top, we'll say the 12, 13 families plus the 300 or so board of director members in the central banks and so on. At the very top, they have been treating all of us as chickens. Right. And they have been using a combination of dumbing down and drugging up, and Hollywood, cultural Marxism, transgenderism, open borders, destroying the family, destroying family integrity, unwed mothers, fathers into prison, predominantly among the black population, but also we've got an awful lot of young white kids that have been sent to prison by judges who have been bribed to feed the prison industry.
Right.
So this isn't just black people being abused,
Right.
It's also white people. In fact, God bless Cynthia McKinney. She told me when we were driving the RV across the country one day, she said, Robert, all the bad shit they're doing to white people today, they did to black people first.
Yeah.
That was practice. Okay? So now the white people are starting to say, hey, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay? And it's actually, I think, bonding us. We have black patriots, white patriots. We're all starting to figure out it's the 99% against the 1%. But I think we're being deprogrammed. It's that simple. Humanity is rising.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just intrigued with the whole kind of conditioning over decades and decades, whether it's fluoride in the water or
it's very contrived. I mean, it's
very
it's a master program,
and just one thing. And would you try this and then this, and it's fascinating.
Well, there are a couple of books. I mean, you and I have talked about the Tavistock Institute. Daniel Estelin did a very good job with that book. You've also got a book on Laurel Canyon, the wilderness of Laurel Canyon. And what's clear is that, first off, we didn't win the war with Germany. Mm-hmm. We actually negotiated a peace treaty. Hitler and his generals and the gold, everything was exfiltrated. A lot of it went to Argentina. They got portions of the United States, but they also got the CIA and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, which is a military intelligence agency, not a space agency, as some people think. And they got into mind control in a very big way. And so, in combination, mind control, both through sodomy and breaking the mind, fracturing the mind, and I mean, their whole objective initially was to create people like they could take anybody from the audience, turn them into an assassin.
Yeah.
They would go assassinate someone, never remember anything, and leave no trace.
That's right.
Okay. But then it expanded into controlling judges and prosecutors, and then they got into child trafficking and pedophilia blackmail, which Chief Justice Roberts is apparently, according to Lynn Wood, who has done a court affidavit to this effect. I expect the Supreme Court to be emptied out in the next year. And I hope that Clarence Thomas becomes our first Chief Justice, a black Chief Justice. He would be dynamite as Chief Justice of the United States of America.
Let's talk about that kind of light at the end of the tunnel. What's a new world look like to you? I mean, in more than just open source and some of the kind of things that you've looked like. I mean, if you look down 10 years from now, what's your wild guess about where we're going and what that might look like?
We will all be holding hands and singing Kumbaya, and we are going to be happy.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, let me give you a more serious answer. One of the reasons CIA was glad to hire me as a clandestine case officer, and I turned down a job offer from Lloyds Bank International because they were excited about me because they were getting into third world risk. And I did an original master's thesis on predicting revolution. And it was a unique, it hasn't been duplicated today. CIA still doesn't understand it. But I looked at political, legal, socioeconomic, ideocultural, techno-demographic, and natural geographic. And then I took Charles Hamden Turner's brilliant book, and I took all the aspects of humanity, from perception, identity, and so forth, and it basically became a matrix of all of the ways you can fuck the human race. And they all exist today. So what you and I have been talking about is a systematic attack on the human race in political, legal, socioeconomic, ideocultural, techno-demographic.
I know, very orchestrated, very.
So my lecture today ends with all of the preconditions of revolutions listed and solutions for every one. So I'm happy. So this future world, I think we're returning to the family as the primary unit of organization. I think we need to keep man and wife together. We probably need to do more about short-term marriages and more about multi-generational housing. People are living longer than the average marriage can stand.
Yeah.
So there need to be term limits on marriage, okay? And at the same time, you need multi-generational families because the grandparents are the single best source of enthusiasm for children to learn and be encouraged and so forth. You need pocket neighborhoods. You need neighbors.
Yeah.
You need villages with agrarian surrounding farmlands. Right. You need small cities connected by high-speed rail.
Right.
The last 50 years have been about creating a massive matrix of lies, restricting useful knowledge, not providing the public with sense-making tools. Now, the only thing they haven't succeeded at is disarming us. And that's why we're the last man standing.
I think in the end it certainly is going to all be good, but getting from here to there is the interesting part, and is
nonviolence is critical. And I'm very, very pleased. And QAnons, I mean, I'm amused by the people who think that Q is somehow evil. It's a sign that the deep state is very worried when they all of a sudden have a whole series of articles from the Atlantic Monthly and on against Q. Yeah. Now, Martin Geddes and I and a few others are absolutely satisfied that Q is a very real military information operations perception management program.
Right.
I don't like the term PSYOP, but this is more about waking people up. And if you go back and you look at prior Q posts and then you fast forward to today, the degree to which some kind of supercomputer has connected all these dots and then anticipated and then made happen these things is incontrovertible. The single most important value of Q has been to keep the white Trumpers from coming out and killing people.
Yeah.
And this is really big. And I have been hugely supportive of no public demonstrations. Stay home. Let God's clock play out.
Yeah. But thank you so much for being with us.
All
We
right.
appreciate it. It's wonderful to have you with us, and thank you for being with us. And we hope you'll come back and meet us at PostScript.